Kathy, diplomatic contact but not necessarily diplomatic progress. On the sidelines of the G20 in New Delhi, the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken was there. Now, he met for the first time since the invasion of Ukraine his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov. They met for just about 10 minutes, the Russians said, on the move. Both sides just stated their position. The Russians saying that they blamed the West for continuing to arm Ukraine, the Americans saying that the Russians should withdraw from Ukraine and then enter some kind of negotiation and dialogue. But I guess at least there was some kind of contact. Here on the battlefield, you know, there's really no change at all. It's just particularly around Bakhmut, there's firing on both sides, people dying, tens of people, soldiers dying every day, with neither side really making any particular progress. And a sense that this war, so many different groups are being pulled into it. I spent some hours with the Dudayev battalion. Those are Chechens fighting on the side of Ukraine. Cleaning their kit, ready for another battle. But these men are not part of an ordinary Ukrainian unit. They're Chechens. There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his prophet, says the badge. Billeted in a nondescript house somewhere in eastern Ukraine, they're following in the footsteps of their fathers, who fought unsuccessfully to push the Russians out of Chechnya in the 1990s. They see this war as part of the same struggle.
I understand very well what is happening in Ukraine and what's happening with the Ukrainian nation. It's the same enemy, it's the same evil who is coming here and killing innocents and children, everyone. It's a massive graves that is in Bucha, Izum, all this. It's the same that was in Chechnya.
About 1,000 Chechens are fighting for Ukraine in 5 battalions. Maga, that's his nom de guerre, shows me video he took of the recapture of the town of Izum last September. On the outskirts, they found 7 Russian tanks with weapons and liberated a few heavy machine guns. But were the tanks abandoned? The Russians had gone?
Yes, yes. They just abandoned their tanks, abandoned their weapons, their uniforms.
Chechens are fighting in the most vicious current battle for the town of Bakhmut. Amongst them, reportedly, Abdul Karim al-Shishani, who previously fought in Syria against Bashar al-Assad and his Russian allies. There are Chechens on the Russian side too. Their videos set to music show acts of daring do, but they stand accused by the Ukrainian government of atrocities.
In the occupied territories they can torture, kill the people, but not like army, go take positions and hold the positions.
This Chechen battalion has also attracted Ukrainian Tatars, Muslims from Crimea. They have plenty of grievances. Their forefathers were exiled by Stalin. And in 2014, when Russia annexed Crimea, many Tatars were imprisoned.
Релігіозного мотиву не було, але просто я розумію цих людей, по-перше, що таке окупація. Я пам'ятаю, що таке був геноцид у 44-му році, коли виселяли наших ще прадідів і дідів. І для мене ця тема більш близька з чеченцями, тому я їх розумію, коли до них, так скажемо, завітала російська армія і почала воювати.
The war in Ukraine is reverberating down the generations, drawing in many who are unlikely to be satisfied by any settlement that doesn't address their own historical reasons for hating Russia. Now, President Putin wasn't talking about Chechens today, but about saboteurs. Now, you may remember that a couple of days ago, he gave a speech to his internal security police, the FSB, calling on them to catch sabotage groups. Right on cue, They caught one today in Bryansk, a region just on the Ukrainian border. They said that these saboteurs had fired into a car, a Niva. They were very precise, and they had shot 2 civilians and a child. Now, it's not clear who this sabotage group were and why they were there. It's known that one of the people who was paraded on television, it was his group who had been on television before, they had promoted themselves, is a well-known Russian neo-Nazi. So it's not clear what his connection is, how he was there. In fact, none of it is clear, except that this was the top news in Russia today, because it feeds the Russian narrative that their enemies are everywhere, in America, in the West, in NATO, in Ukraine, in Chechnya, and right there at home.